Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining another episode of the Educational Leadership Podcast. We have another very special guest. And before we introduce our guest, I want to give a shout out to our co-host, Corinne French.
Hello, so excited to be here with another wonderful superintendent.
Yes, very exciting. And before we get into today's conversation, we do want to give a thank you to our sponsor, Ideal Impact. Ideal Impact is providing hundreds of millions of dollars to public education around the great state of Texas. Over $700 million in funding given to over 190 districts in Texas, zero out of pocket to the district, recurring revenue every year, and it's not a grant. You have to reach out to them to learn more about it. All right. Today, we have Superintendent from Columbus ISD, Superintendent Connor. How you doing today?
Very well, very well. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you for making time. We know how busy superintendents get with all of the different things. I don't know how y'all do it, honestly. If you can, just for our listeners, share a little bit about your background.
Well, originally I'm from Massachusetts. My first 21 years were spent there. My last 40 have been spent here in Texas, but I have been told that I have only 25 letters in my alphabet, so you may miss some R's, and I just hope everybody listening can get past that. I was a high school coach and biology teacher for 30 years, and kind of fell into the central office gig. I was in Galveston. I was at Galveston Ball High School when Ike hit. And we had lost so many kids, so many athletes that I was told I might have to coach football, which scared the heck out of me. Not that I don't love football, because I'm in Texas and I love football, but time commitment. And anyway, long story short, I ended up going back and getting my mid-management master's. I had gotten my master's at Sam Houston in the early 80s. And I moved from the baseball field to central office, and from central office, I was the director of advanced academics. I moved to Burnett out in the hill country, which was, I was the director of curriculum, secondary curriculum. And then I came over to Columbus, and I've been the superintendent here for, it's going to start my 4th year.
I love it. So, I know. So we this is like our first question we ask people, and I love it because everyone's story does seem a bit different. And I always ask this question, did you know? So you kind of answered my question. I always ask about, did you know then you would be a superintendent? And the answer is no, you didn't. But did you think that you could be? Was it something you just thought of, like, maybe someday? Or was it no?
So I'll be honest. No, I liked coaching. I enjoyed kids, adults I could take or leave. So I didn't know if this was going to be the calling, but you just kind of life takes crazy turns. I think, interestingly enough, earlier today I was meeting with the chief of police in Columbus, because we're trying to get things in order in case House bills pass that will say that we have to have a security officer at every campus. So we're just starting the conversation. And I was telling him that originally in Massachusetts, they had passed a tax rollback, property tax rollback, which is one of the things that they're talking about here in Texas. And that's why I'm here. I was teaching PE to elementary kids who love you and will do anything, just tell them, hey, go run to the tree. And they, Coach, can we? And yeah, absolutely. It was just a great life. And then, but they passed this rollback, and it cut back property taxes 2.5%. And by doing that, it cut back 1/3 of the teaching force, the police force, and the fire department.
Wow.
So I was low man on the totem pole. It's a union state. I was there for 1 year, and I ended up being a grad assistant at Sam Houston, and that's how I ended up in Texas. So knowing that we're going to make these huge property taxes, it's always something in the back of my mind, but to be conscious of.
Yeah, just curious. So there's a lot going on right now in public ed right now. So what's top of your radar as far as, what you're most focused on?
Well, obviously the changing in accountability school-wise, we want to make sure that we're on top of that. And But truly, I can honestly say that I spent my first 25 years in private ed. I was a baseball coach in Houston. And so I have the perspective of both private ed and public ed, and have spent my last 20 years now in public ed. And now with the push for vouchers, I can honestly tell you, as a person who spent time in one of the best private schools in the state of Texas. I think it's the oldest Catholic school in the state of Texas. That the public education does so much more for kids. It shocked me. Now, the interesting thing that with the idea of vouchers, and I saw that in all other states, that 85% of the recipients of the vouchers are already attending private schools. So we're not, it's really not school choice, right? Or parent choice. But one of the things that has always tickled me is I remember 2 or 3 years ago when we were on a pitch about critical race theory and how we don't teach this in the public school. Well, I can tell you in 20 years, I don't know anybody that's ever taught that. However, in the private school that I was at, they taught healing racism. Great class, senior level, but it was in effect the critical race theory. I'm sure it was part of it. And yet we're saying that we want to spend public money on private schools and not hold them accountable to what they're teaching. So it's like we're getting two different messages, I think, in the public sector, is that we're saying, hey, you can't do this, we're going to control your curriculum. But in the private sector, we're saying, hey, we want to give you public funds, but you can do whatever you want, even if it's against what they believe, what is a core principle in their mind. I've always thought that, I thought that now that's really odd. And that to me is a dichotomy that's very difficult for me to swallow.
No, this is, sorry, go ahead.
Well, it's, I love that you're saying that and actually talking about that, because I was in a doc class and they asked us to raise our hand if we knew anything about critical race theory. And they were all educators. Everyone was principal or campus administration level. And I was the only person that raised my hand because I have a master's degree in student affairs and we took a cultural competency course. So out of 19 people working on their doctorate, I was the only person that took a course, and it was part of my higher ed degree. And so I think it's fascinating to me, after virtual schooling, when we had an option to see everything our children were, parents, if we ever wondered what was happening in the classroom being taught, like, of course we know someone might be throwing an eraser at a friend, and we don't know some of the behaviors in the classroom when we're online, but in what's actually being taught, I think that should have passed. We should have just given that up after COVID. We should realize that was not being taught. That should have just become a non-issue. And I'm shocked that educated people and politicians and just civilians in general haven't realized that is not being taught. Teachers want kids to learn math. They want the basics to be taught.
There's so much to keep up with the TEKS that there's not enough time in the day to have what I would consider maybe an upper level, but even a fluff course, right? Our teachers, I know, and I've worked in 4 public schools, and all public school systems, we follow the curriculum to a T, because we know we're going to be accountable for those TEKS. So yeah, I agree with you. I think it was kind of a politicization of something that wasn't happening.
Well, you touched on a good point, Superintendent Connor. In the oversight in public education is a lot more stringent than the private sector. It's and granted, there may be a teacher or an administrator somewhere, that made a mistake at some point, right? Just like every business, every institution, there's always, and of course that gets highlighted, right? And I know what we're doing here on the podcast, we're highlighting some really good things. I think, we have over 50 episodes of superintendents and board members that are just sharing some of the amazing things going. going on. But love to hear a little bit more about that. So you have the experience of private ed versus public ed. What are some other benefits of public ed versus private ed?
Well, to me, there's a lot of, I mean, I'm in a rural town. Columbus is probably about 5,000 people, give or take, and we have a few other little rural communities. And the beauty of this is that you are the local hub. You know, everything kind of revolves around these kids and what they're accomplishing. Our goal has always been, even because we're not that far from Katy, we're probably 45, 50 miles from Katy. So we want to be able to offer our kids what any child in Katy can do, but in a more rural setting. So a lot of the things that we're doing here to move our kids, especially in the areas of CTE, you know, being in the private schools, there was no, every child was set to go to college, and it was a college curriculum, which is great. But, you know, as we realize, not everybody will go or needs college. And we've made it a kind of our what we're hanging our hat on is that we want to prepare our kids for their future, whether it be college or a career that they could be employable as soon as they graduate high school. So that's kind of our goal here. And I don't see that as much. I see more well-rounded reaching of kids. You know, we're not pigeonholing kids into one area. We're kind of letting kids be kids and find their niche, right? I mean, like being a superintendent, I never thought I'd be a superintendent. I just like to coach, but you migrate a certain way because it life just happens. And kids, I mean, I remember being 17 and I didn't know what I wanted to do. And it's very difficult to say, hey, this is what you're going to do. We try to offer them a smorgasbord of events and activities, and then try to migrate their way into what they want to do. And I think that's what public ed does better than anybody.
Yeah, I agree. As far as preparing and, you know, just all of the value that's provided there. I feel like private ed's kind of become a shiny object that people think about because it, you know, it costs a lot of money and only certain people can go there. But at the end of the day, is the education better? Not necessarily. It's, I mean, based on the people we've talked to around the state.
Yeah, I agree. I think yes. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I think that better is such a hard word because I homeschooled for many years and I loved it and it was wonderful. But things only work when they work. But we have to have a strong public school for anyone who can't afford to homeschool or anyone who can't afford private school. So I feel like the question needs to be is why would you not want public school? Like if you are a person that's in a private school and a family of a private school students or homeschool students, why would you not want any other child to have the best possible option? Like, I don't know why we're not asking that. Why would you not?
I think that's a valid point. I think that, you know, the greatness of a small community is, you know, you can actually see your future come up through the ranks. Yeah. And you're trying to prepare these kids to be there for you or for me when we're old. And you want to have a strong base and I agree with you. I think that especially in a situation like this where we don't have a private option for high school, we really have to pour into our kids here because they are going to be running this sooner than everybody, you know, knows. Yeah.
I love that. I mean, I think of that all the time. That person's going to be my nurse. That person's going to be they're going to be fixing my car. I mean, who doesn't want their car to run properly? You know, who doesn't want their air conditioner, you know, I want my air conditioner to work this summer. We're in Texas, you know? And so I think everyone is important. Every job is important. Every person is important, and having a student feel that way when they leave your district, there's nothing better than that, because then they're going to feel important to go do whatever work they choose. Like you said, you never know.
Agreed. So, one of the things we did is that we combined with 4 other rural districts, because being as small as we are, we have a high school of a little over 500 kids. It's really difficult. We don't have the economy of scale that Acadie does, so that we can't, if we decide to offer a particular CTE track, we just don't have the numbers of kids that can participate in that. So what we've done is we've partnered with 4 other rural districts and Blinn Junior College, and started this program called Access, where we took the 3 most employable positions in Colorado County, where Columbus is, and Fayette County, which is right next to us, where some of the other schools are. And we went to the Texas Workforce Commission, and they said, hey, the 3 most employable positions in your area are education, healthcare, and building trades. So we have brought in education and training, and kids who want to go to college route to do that, we're going to offer them at least 40 plus hours of college credit. Where we added another ag teacher to come in and do an industrial trade. So we're going to have our kids trained, and we have them trained now in welding, but basic carpentry, plumbing, electrical, HVAC, so that they can go out and do that. And then, our goal is to work with our hospital. Our hospital has undergone a huge renovation here, but to actually put our kids there in like a CNA program, so we can actually build out. But the idea is keep the kids in the community, and have them employable, not just at Walmart or a grocery store. Let's give them a career.
So on that same note, with like plumbing, HVAC, the other trades, so this is preparing students so when they graduate, they can go work for one of these companies and be ready to go. Does that sound?
I think it gives them, they'll have industry-based certificates, but I think it gives them the basic knowledge. Because then you kind of go off, right? We can teach you a little bit of plumbing, but not enough to be a journeyman plumber. But if that's where your interest goes, you can go and take it further and do that.
No, that's great. I know statistics show right now in the HVAC industry and some of the other trades that are out there, there's a shortage right now. So these technicians that go into the workforce, they can ask for a higher hourly wage than they ever could have in the past. So that's awesome. Just curious, are they doing like hands-on type work as well, or is it all are they reading about it, more theory, or?
No, it's hands-on. So we have we just spent a lot of money ventilating our ag building for additional welding bays, and they're doing basic carpentry things. Now we're going to go to the next step, where plumbing and all that, but it'll be hands-on. So
that's awesome. And has that already been launched, or is that kind of in the process of?
So our freshmen this year were the first group to launch it. We've had welding for a long time, but this is the first group that'll go through the 4-year program.
Wow.
I'm fascinated by that. Oh, sorry, Gary. I keep interrupting today. I'm so excited.
No. I think both of us are. That's why we're talking. Yeah, it's super exciting. One of our previous guests, we were talking about an entrepreneurship program that they had at their district, and then what you guys are doing in the trades, and y'all may be doing entrepreneurship too. But this is just phenomenal, because you hear a lot of the naysayers out there. And I know today we've talked a lot about like private ed, public ed. I don't think people appreciate the level of scrutiny public ed gets, and they also don't appreciate some of the things that are happening they're not even aware of, and which is it's super exciting. And we talked about, so we're going to be launching a conference here soon talking about disruptive public ed, and we're going to be talking about some of these things that are innovative, and we're going to be getting the word out there.
I think, and I would love to have you come on again, because I think what you said about the partnering with the 4 districts, really, that inspires me. I was a trustee in a rural district. We were under 1,000 ADA. When I first started 10 years ago on that board, we were 650. So we grew in 10 years for sure. But there are things we just cannot provide because of it doesn't matter how much someone wants it or how important it is. We can't provide it unless we partner. And that partnering with when other rural districts partner together, I think that's brilliant. And I think that's one of the things that probably needs to happen more. Get together. And I think superintendents do an excellent job of that. I know my superintendent at the time, he was constantly on the phone with other superintendents. It's the only way the job gets done is by sharing ideas, sharing resources at times. So I love that idea. And I like the word access too. That's the name of the program, right? Access?
Correct. Yeah, correct.
Yeah. It's excellent.
It's an acronym, and I'd love to tell you that I remember what the acronym was for.
No, it's the idea that you are providing access for the students and pathways. I think that's such an important thing. So, and partnering with other districts, that's the way to go, I think, in the future for sure.
I think so, because I mean, we're the largest of the 5 districts in it. So, you know, Weimar has maybe, I don't think they have 1,000 kids in the district. So, and then Fayetteville's even smaller. So I can't imagine, you know, if you have a high school of maybe 100 kids, how can you provide all those options if you aren't partnering with somebody and sharing resources? So
we got Weimar.
I do hope it catches on.
Mm-hmm. Well, I challenged our guest yesterday. Sorry, Gary, I'm going to interrupt him here. We challenged our guest yesterday. Sometimes I ask a question like, what are you reading? And it's like, because I know our listeners are superintendents and trustees and educators and people who want to disrupt public ed and do it in a good way, like making those positive changes. But I think instead of asking you, and you for sure, definitely let us know if there's something we should be reading or you want our listeners to listen to and read. But I think you should make sure your district is talking about that at the TASB, TASA, Midwinter, all those conferences, because it's hard. You know, you can look on someone's website and see how they did it, possibly the results, but you don't see the legwork. And I think there are probably templates and things that y'all could share that would help other small districts. So I kind of want to challenge you, if you're not for districts not presenting, to start presenting.
Well, we are presenting. There's a national conference that we're presenting. We're not. The people from Access are.
Good.
And I can tell you that, of course, like in anything in education, all great ideas are stolen. And
right.
Actually, there is a rural group in East Texas, and which started this first. It's out in Jasper, and I don't remember the name of it, but it's Jasper, Spurger, Kirbyville. There's this. They started this idea, and they actually built a facility that they all come to.
Wow.
We have a facility in Schulenburg. That's where we're going to go down the road, but we didn't have any data. So this first year, we just wanted to collect data before we went out and presented, because if it didn't work out well, then I didn't want to fall on our face in front of a bunch of people. So
very cool. So you mentioned Weimar, Fayetteville, Columbus. What were the other 2 in your area?
Flatonia and Schulenburg.
Okay. Very good. And then Jasper, Kirbyville, and Spurger. So all of these districts have this type of program where they're getting students ready to go into the trades. Is that right?
That's correct. It's either college coursework or the trades. So it's kind of, and I think it's called Deep East Texas Rural something. That's what their acronym is. But
oh, you're giving him homework. I love this. I love it.
Yeah, this is so cool. This is super exciting, and I know we're running short on time here, so I'll ask the last question here. This is a tough one, so you know, I got to put on your thinking cap for this one, right?
All right.
If you were to invite another leader in public education to come on the podcast, who would you recommend?
Shout out. Who do you want us to interview next?
Yeah, we'll do a shout out to him.
Well, I think that my true mentor in what I do is Keith McBurnett, who is the superintendent in Burnett, and that's where I came from. And I think Keith is he's been there for quite a while, maybe 12, 13 years. Very innovative, has brought some, when I was in Burnett, we were the HEB Small School District of the Year. And Keith had a lot to do with that. And I think his innovation and his thinking has kind of challenged me, but he is a very interesting person. And I think he would be just great for your podcast.
Was he superintendent of the year?
So.
I know, we will. And he was superintendent of the year, right?
He was? He may have been.
Okay, wait,
not while I was there, but
okay.
we were, when I was in Burnett, we were the district of the year. And I know.
Okay, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. Well, we will tell him that you said, and we'll let him know, because we would love to have him on. I love that you're saying a mentor. I think we've talked about that before. I know this was our last question, but I want to just give a shout out to anyone who's mentoring future superintendents. It's so important. Find someone in your district that looks like they'd be a great leader. They might not be thinking that they're a great leader. So you as a leader, go find them, go tell them, tap them, tell them that you want to mentor them. I don't know any superintendent that would ever say no to spending some time with the future leader. And so yes. I'm excited that you mentioned yours. So thank you for that.
Amen to that. Anybody listening, and if you don't have a mentor, go get one, because you will not get to where you want to go without a mentor. It's if without a mentor, you're kind of just operating in a vacuum a little bit. So it's
agreed.
We'll appreciate you sharing that. So we will close out. And before we close out, just want to give a shout out to our sponsor one last time, Ideal Impact, giving hundreds of millions of dollars to districts around the great state of Texas, over $700 million, over 190 districts, zero out of pocket to your district, and it's recurring revenue every year. It's not a grant. So if you would like more funding for your district, for higher teacher salaries, for additional security, or whatever it may be, reach out to Ideal Impact. And for those of y'all that have been tuning in, stay tuned for future episodes of the Educational Leadership Podcast.